what do we do? One of the things I think we need to do is think about how to raise water productivity. We've been focusing on land productivity for a long, long time. We know what it is to raise yield per acre. We don't even have a term for water productivity. You know, grain per ton of water used, or 1,000 tons of water used, or what have you. I would point out that it takes 1,000 tons of water to produce 1 ton of grain. So water is an important part of the resource mix in thinking about future food security. We need an indicator of water productivity, and we don't have one now, so just as we have an indicator for land productivity, tons per hectare, bushels per acre, whatever. We also need to rethink our grain reserve requirements. For most of the last half of the last century and into this century, we thought at the end of the year we should have about 70 days of consumption in carryover stocks. This was the measure of the security issue. 70 days of consumption in the bin when the crop year ended. And that's in case you have a really poor harvest, you'll have something to fall back on. But that standard was set before climate change became an issue. I think today we need to raise that 70 days of consumption to 110 days of consumption. Because with climate change, there's going to be much more variability, and we don't know when it will come and where it will hit the hardest. I mean, we know right now that California is in one of the most serious droughts on record. The good news is that California doesn't produce a lot of our grain. They produce some rice, but not a lot of food staples. They produce a lot of the things we like to eat in the way of, particularly of fruits and vegetables and so forth. We need a mobilization. One not unlike the mobilization for World War II. I mean, we didn't prepare for World War II. And then suddenly we were at war. And we weren't ready. So Roosevelt banned the sale of automobiles. And the reason he did that was because he wanted the automobile companies to start producing planes and tanks and other equipment for the war. I remember seeing the film footage of what had been an automobile plant in Michigan turning out, I think it was B-19s or one of the large bombers. They were literally coming off the assembly line, just as cars once had. So that was an example of how we mobilized for World War II. We need to begin thinking about how we mobilize in the face of climate change, in the face of water shortages, in the face of continuing population growth, about 80 million a year. We have to think about how to stabilize population. We can't keep growing indefinitely on a finite planet. At some point, it could become unmanageable. And the key to stabilizing population is basically eradicating poverty. I mean, we think about providing family planning services, and that's obviously important, reproductive health care for women and so forth. But we have to eradicate poverty if we want people to think about reducing family size.